What's up, Dragon Ball fans? This is DomCherokee, and for this episode of Dragon Ball Impacts, I'm going to be interviewing the one, the only DB Talks.
What's up, guys?
You know him, you love him, he's the best. So DB Talks, I figured since you interviewed me, I'd interview you this time, and that way we could put it up on your channel.
Yeah, I might be the only YouTuber that has a series where they interview themselves. Well, you're interviewing me, so I guess that makes up for it. But
So, my first question was, how old were you when you discovered anime?
anime in general, oh gosh.
Yeah, just in general.
I'm gonna say, well, definitely elementary school. So probably 8 years old. 8 years old, I'd say.
Oh yeah, what anime was it?
You know, I want to say Dragon Ball, but I think, and this might not count. Have you heard of Ronin Warriors?
Dude, I was gonna say the same thing.
Oh, really?
I loved Ronin Warriors because I remember in like 4th or 3rd grade, like there was just like all this stuff going on Cartoon Network,
Yeah.
like on the Toonami block.
Oh yeah,
And,
definitely.
yeah, Ronin Warriors was like one of the. I feel like it might have been on before Dragon Ball.
I think so. You know what? So in that case, I might have been seven, I think.
Oh yeah, Ronin Warriors was the shit. I loved. So what did you like about Ronin Warriors?
Oh, just the fact that it was similar to Power Rangers. You have these like 4 different people. They're all in armor, different colors. So I just like that concept. You know, like just these superheroes in colors.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it kind of reminded me of Power Rangers, and I remember having one of the action figures. It was the white armor.
Yeah, were they all combined?
But see, I got the action figure, and what happened was I'd watch the show and I'd be like, wait a minute, I don't see the white one on here. I'm so confused. And then when it finally got to the episode, I was just like, oh, dude, so I own the most powerful action figure.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, it was fun.
No, man, yeah, Ronin Warriors was one of my jams, dude. I loved Ronin Warriors.
Yeah.
So, like, what did you think the first time you saw it? Like, looking at anime and just seeing all the different color palettes and just the totally different style of animation and just, you know, ideas that were being brought forth. What did you think of that as like a little kid?
As a kid, I think I was really drawn into the action. You know, because here in the West, back then, it was like, you know, Bugs Bunny, you know, Daffy Duck.
Yeah, a lot of like Saturday morning. It was still like Saturday morning cartoons for the most part. We got like a lot of Hanna-Barbera, like Scooby-Doo.
That's right, yeah.
And the Banana Splits. I remember that a lot on Cartoon Network.
Yeah, I think it was really just the action, all the fighting. I mean, what kid wouldn't like, you know, action shows? I mean, it was awesome. Just the fight scenes, the colors, just really had me hooked.
Yeah, nice. So how did it affect your life? Like, what did your when I say affect your life immediately? So like as a kid, the next day, did you go to school and like talk to your friends about this? Did it change kind of like your social situations?
And are you saying anime in general, or you mean?
Yeah, like I think anime in general. Like when you first discovered like Ronin Warriors.
Well, see, so it's kind of tricky. So for Ronin Warriors, I actually didn't talk to any of my friends at school about it.
Really?
The only person I talked to about it was my cousin, and you've heard him before on our Dragon Ball Super review, Finn. I don't think I told you he was my cousin. That's my cousin. And yeah, me and him were the only ones that talked about it.
Nice.
And he also had, I think he had the red armored soldier action figure.
Oh, that's what's
I
up,
think so,
man.
yeah.
That's cool. So you could be like, you put the red one there and be like, oh, I'm changing, and then
Yeah.
you put your white one there to take his place.
Exactly, yeah.
That's kind of cool. Okay, so so then like that was kind of like your gateway anime. So, how old were you when you first got into Dragon Ball? Just in general, like Dragon Ball Z, whatever iteration of it was.
So that's when I would say 8 years old. So what happened, actually 8 or 9, what happened was, you know, Toonami, that was the thing in the 90s, and I would see Dragon Ball Z on TV, but I don't know why, for some reason I really wasn't interested. Like, it would come on, I would just change the channel to like Nickelodeon or something. Channel 49 for those of you that don't remember cable. And then Cartoon Network was 37, but yeah. So for some reason, I wasn't. I just see it. I would change the channel. But then I went to school, and my friend, his name was Colin. He told me, "Oh, dude, you gotta watch this show, Dragon Ball Z." I was like, "I know what it is, but is it really that cool?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, dude." And he would go on and on about it. And at the time, he was my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And so, after he told me about it, I was like, "Okay, I guess I'll give this a chance." So, when I actually had my first attempt at watching it, it was the Namek Saga, and I don't remember which scene in particular, but it was probably, I know it had Vegeta. I think it might have been when he went into that Namekian village and just killed all of them. But I saw him just fighting them, destroying everything, and I was like, I didn't say this as a kid, but I was thinking, this guy's badass.
Yeah.
It was really cool, and just I kept watching, and I noticed how they would power up, and the energy attacks, and from that moment, that's when I was like, okay, I was hooked, and I just remember watching it all the way up until the Raccoon fight when Goku shows up, and then Goku like one-shots Raccoon, and then I would say next time on Dragon Ball Z, and you'd see Goku fighting Jason Birder, but then the next day I was like, okay, I'm ready for the fight. I was always disappointed because they would always go to the very beginning of the series.
Oh, yeah.
And that happened to me like 5 times. And I knew it was coming, but every time I was like, just maybe this time they're going to keep going.
Yeah.
And then I would get let down.
Yeah, that was because of the dub change, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so originally, was it Ocean you were watching?
It was the Ocean dub, yes.
Yeah, man. I remember, like, I was super drawn to Brian Drummond's Vegeta. Just like when he was, when he found that Gohan had taken the Dragon Ball, and he like was in the water, and he realized it, and he comes out, and he's like, "I'll get you." That was my shit.
You want to escape my wrath?
Yeah, that. Yeah. So, what about Dragon Ball in particular? I guess you kind of already answered that, but what about Dragon Ball in particular? Were you drawn to? Because like there's Running Warriors, but obviously Dragon Ball is different. Like, there's something about Dragon Ball that attracts loads of people to it, So what about Dragon Ball set itself apart from all these other animes that you were watching?
Just the whole, the concept of powering up, just the screaming. Like, I know in reality that would look dumb, but, like, just seeing them, like, screaming and, like, have this energy around them to increase their power. And then the fights were so fast. Like, the fact that they could fly, they were able to destroy planets. And they were so fast, like, and I say teleport, it looked like teleporting, but it was really just them fighting at high speed.
Yeah.
As we didn't get teleporting until Goku got instant transmission, but yeah, it was just really badass, and that's the thing, like, Ronin Warriors, just, like, it was fun, but it didn't have that. None of those guys, like, had aura around them, they couldn't fly.
Yeah.
Had to rely on weapons, whereas these guys, when I was a kid, I was like, man, these guys would, like, totally own Superman.
Yeah. No, it's all. I think that's what draws a lot of people to Dragon Ball is, like, every power that you see is something that's attained through, like, training, and so everything's coming from your body rather than, like, a suit of armor or, like, magic.
Exactly.
And so you would say that that's kind of what drew you to it too, the fact that they were doing it, like, on their own versus, like, having some kind of, like, magic bestowed on them or something.
Exactly, yeah. Just the fact that it was all them, all that willpower, and just they were just, all the fights were amazing. Yeah, that was basically it.
Cool. So how did your life change after Dragon Ball, like, socially and all that good stuff?
Oh man, so I got a story for you. So I mentioned the Raccoon fight earlier, where Goku shows up and he one-shots him. Well, let me tell you a story of my first and only fight ever in life. So I was in 3rd grade, and what happened was, for some reason, I went with a different class. I overheard my teacher, or I heard them wrong, and I thought my teacher said, okay, today, class, you're going to go with Mrs. So-and-so, and you're going to stay with them for the rest of the day. That's what I thought she said, but really, she just said something completely different. I don't know what happened that morning, but
You were probably thinking about Dragon Ball.
maybe. And so I went with this other class, and I went with them to like enrichment or specials. And so I even remember my art teacher. She was like, "You're not supposed to be in here." Oh, but Miss So and So said I had to stay with this class, and she was like, "Okay, whatever." And so, but being in this class, I met this kid. His name was Del, Del.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot his last name, but me and Del did not see eye to eye. So I sat with him at the art table,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just sitting there like tapping my pencil. I think I had my arms crossed and like was tapping my finger. You know, the whole Vegeta thing, because I've seen him do that before.
Oh yeah.
And
you were just doing it out of habit. You weren't like egging this guy.
I was not. I was just out of habit because I had finished my artwork and
Uh-huh.
I was just sitting there, and this guy's like, "Dude, stop!" I was like, "Sorry," and then I did it again. I wasn't trying to piss him off, and then he goes, "Okay, if you do it again, I'm gonna kick your butt." So after that, like, I was like, "Wow, no one's ever told this to me before." I didn't know what to think.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened, and this was, you could definitely tell. You'll definitely be able to tell that I was a big fan of the show after hearing this part. So we're out at recess,
Mm-hmm.
and my friend Austin, I told him about. I was like, "Yeah, this Dell guy, he's being a jerk, says he wants to kick my butt." Well, then my friend Austin said, "Oh, well, you know, one time he told me he wanted to kick my butt too." Well, at that moment, when he said that he wanted to kick my friend's butt, I totally went Goku.
Mm-hmm.
And my whole demeanor changed. I was just like, "Wait, what?" And so, like, after that, he's like, my friend's like, "No, it's not a big deal." And so I was like, "No, I'm going to take care of this." So I remember walking onto the playground and walking under this tree, and Dell's over there like with his friends. I think they might have been playing Pokemon, Pokemon cards. And I was like, "Hey, you said you wanted to fight my friend? Well, I don't appreciate that." That's not exactly what I said, but basically I called him out. I was like, "Let's do this." And so he got up, and the one thing I did quote from the show, Goku's quote when he was fighting Raccoon, and I said, and this is the Ocean dub, I said, "You won't even be able to land a finger on me." I did that quote, and I even copied him.
Mm-hmm.
And then I even remember Dell coming out like, "Oh," and then he touched me in the arm like, "Oh, I laid a finger on you."
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I was ready to fight him. I was like, "Let's go." And so what happened was, he swung at me.
Mm-hmm.
I grabbed his arm,
Mm-hmm.
and then I grabbed his other arm,
Mm-hmm.
and I pulled him in, and I kneed him
Oh,
right in the gut, so as far as I could. And then he went down the ground just like Raccoon. Well, he didn't knock out, but he was on the ground. He was just like, "Oh, like, why'd you do that? I'm gonna tell the teacher." And then I remember just walking away, so like, so happy. I was just like, it's like, "Hey man, I told you you don't mess with my friends." And so I walked away so like confident.
Nice.
Yeah. And I remember I told my dad about that, and he's just like, "Wait, what?"
Did I get mad?
Yeah, he got mad, but
Oh man.
yeah, it was just cool. Like my first fight, and I won it. But looking back on that though, as an adult, I think what happened was my friend Austin, you know, was just trying to tell me, "Oh, he just says that to everybody."
Yeah.
He's told me that before. He was just trying to say, "Don't take it seriously."
Yeah.
But I took it seriously that he wanted to hurt my friend, and so I just went Goku and like took care of the
Well,
situation.
I bet he never said he was going to kick anybody's butt again.
Well, at that same day, the principal came out to us, and then, you know, we shook hands, and after that, like, we kind of just had this like respect for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I found out that I wasn't supposed to be in that class. Apparently everyone's just like, "Hey, we were worried about you. Yeah, like, we thought you were lost." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
So Dragon Ball does cause violence. We figured it out. Yeah.
Sometimes.
So yeah, I wanted to ask what your family thought about, you know, your relationship with Dragon Ball, because I remember my dad always hated like Dragon Ball. I think he just didn't like the idea of Japanese style art, or just I don't know what it was. I was just like really into Dragon Ball, and he was just not a fan of it. And I think it was because, like, you know, he was kind of training me to be like a visual artist, and I'd always draw Dragon Ball, and he wanted me to draw other shit. And he was like, "No, that's gay," and I was like, "But I like this." So that was kind of my relationship with it. So what was yours?
Well, so my dad, we would play fight a lot, and he never really mentioned the show at all. But the one thing that I would do when we play fight was, because he would always beat me, but whenever I would break loose from him, I would like pretend I was powering up like, oh, and I would scream. And he'd be like, he's like, boy, that's not gonna do anything. He's like, you can scream all you want, but I'm still gonna win. I was like, oh yeah. And so I would try, but he would always win. So that was the most, he'd have to say about the show as far as the screaming. And then my mom and sister, this probably annoyed me the most. So, and I finally figured out why as an adult, and I'll get to that in a minute. But they would always mess with me because they knew the character's name, so and they would always say, my sister, she was 8 years older than me.
Oh wow!
And
big difference.
Yeah, and so she would always be like, "Hey, Vegeta," and I'd be like, "Stop!" As a kid, just don't say that. Like, why? Because it sounds weird when you say it. And my mom would do it too, and my sister, mom, and my aunt, they would do it just to mess with me, and I'd be like, "Stop!" And now as an adult, I figured out that the reason I didn't like it is because I felt it was cringy.
Oh, really?
I just didn't have that word back then, but now I'm like, yeah, that's why I didn't like it, because it was cringy hearing my mom and sister and aunt say their names, which now it's not a big deal, but back then it just bugged me. I was just like, don't say that.
Yeah, like, this is my hero. You can't talk about him like that, you know? You don't know anything about him.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
And then obviously, as far as family, Finn, he loved the show too. I think he, if I didn't tell him about it, he got into it on his own. But me and him like similar things. As far as us, we talk about it all the time. In fact, me and him went to Kamehacon last year, and he was with us at the Broly movie, obviously. But we collected action figures, toys, not really necessarily Dragon Ball, but like the Ronin Warriors or any action figure we'd have. And basically the gist of our stories was Dragon Ball centered. It would be, an enemy shows up and he kills a relative or a loved one, and then you get a power boost from it.
Yeah.
And the way we would fight with our action figure. Like, you see these commercials like back then where the kids would be play fighting and they'd be like, yeah, and then they'd be going slow motion and they'd barely tap. No, whenever we fought with these action figures, we would have them hit as hard as they could.
Yeah.
And we'd be like, ah, and like,
I remember that too. Yeah.
Dodge, and then eventually they would get broken, but
oh no, yeah.
And so all of our stories with the action figures would just be like, we'd have the powers of like Dragon Ball Z, we could fly, Ki Blast. We would even Kamehameha, all this stuff.
So were your parents like, I don't want to say supportive, but like were they okay with it? Because like I remember like buying all the action figures and the card games and stuff, and even though my dad wasn't a big fan of it, like he still allowed me to do it. He wasn't like, okay, you can't like be that into something. Were they cool with you like buying all the action figures and stuff like that?
Yeah, they were cool with that. As far as buying action figures, I didn't have that many Dragon Ball action figures, believe it or not. I did have Vegito Super Saiyan. That was another one of those things where when I was a little kid, I was like, how come I don't see this guy in the show? And then when I saw him in the show, I was just like, of course by that point I was older, but as a kid I would have been like, oh, I had like the most powerful Dragon Ball character.
Nice.
But really, the action figures, what that came down to was just money. If my parents didn't have enough money to buy me an action figure, they'd say, hey, we can't do it this time. So they were pretty supportive. Like if I had some of the VHSs, and I also had the first 3 Budokais, so they weren't against it or anything.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah, I always thought like, while my parents weren't, or while my dad wasn't really supportive of it, or like he didn't like it, he did acknowledge the fact that it was like socializing me in some way, because I had a group of friends kind of based around the commonality of Dragon Ball and stuff.
Yeah.
So was that the same with you? Were your friends kind of like anime nerds and stuff like that? Like going into like middle school and high school.
Okay, so in all honesty, I think it was kind of like your story. Did you say in middle school you didn't really have anyone to, or was it just high school?
Yeah, it was high school for me.
Well, for me, like in middle school, actually, now that I think about it, it might have been 5th and 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
So, the district I was going to at the time, elementary was K through 4, and then we go to intermediate school. Well, what happened was, when I went to the intermediate school, they would get, it was my elementary school and then the others in the district, and they'd all put us together, but I ended up not seeing a lot of my friends, so I went to school with K through 4, and so I had to make new friends, and it never really came up. I couldn't find anyone that was into Dragon Ball. Like, I even remember I watched Yu-Gi-Oh! The anime, and I had friends that knew to play the Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, and I would try to talk about the anime with them, and they'd be like, "Oh, that show's dumb." So basically, like, 5th grade on, I didn't really talk about the show with anyone at school, which is really sad. And then by the time, I think when I got to high school, like junior high, not junior high, as a junior, I think I had made up my mind that, hey, I have to grow out of this, which is, looking back on it, as kind of a dumb thing to do, but at the time I was like, I gotta grow up, and I can't like this show anymore, so I'm gonna move on. But luckily I came back, like, as a freshman in college. I remember coming home from the summer, and I just started watching it again.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I like this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna, I don't care if people think it's a kid's show. I don't care. It's a good show, and I love it. And so I rewatched the whole series.
Yeah.
So.
That's funny. You know, I kind of had the same experience on those college breaks. You know, like either the winter break, which was like a month long. You know, I would come home and watch like all the Yu Yu Hakusho DVDs that I had, and I would just be like, all right, I'm just gonna practice guitar and watch fucking Yu Yu Hakusho. So yeah, you know, I think like there is like this kind of double-edged sword to something like Dragon Ball, to where you have to grow up, but also, you know, it's a very important part of your life.
Yeah.
You know, so you kind of reel back on it. You reel back on the fandom. You don't, you know, you're not so outwardly obsessed with it, and you know, you don't spend your money on all these things anymore. But it's just like, you know, something that's very important to you.
Yeah.
So you still have this kind of like, you know, mindful respect for it or something.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah, I think that's good. You know, because I mean, people are into all kinds of shit, and like, what separates Dragon Ball from, you know, football? You know what I mean?
Yeah, or even, here's one for you, Harry Potter.
Yeah, or Harry Potter. Yeah, it's like people have all these kinds of obsessions, and
like,
you know,
comic books and
yeah, there's no real way to qualify it. You know, even like music. You know,
right?
It's like it's not something you can necessarily take away from someone, or you should feel bad about, as long as, you know, you're not, you know, hurting anyone or damaging yourself. You know, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like how you know, you kind of, you know, said that you wanted to grow out of it, but then you kind of came back to it and had this, like, you know, more mature appreciation for it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So now that you're kind of back into it, like, how did your social life reflect your, you know, appreciation for Dragon Ball, like in college?
Well, and we kind of talked about this on your video. You know, like, I think you were probably you, and then maybe like Alan came later, but I think you were maybe the first one I talked to about it with, because you know, Battle of Gods was coming out. But I think we also mentioned this in the last one, where we kind of like, as far as guitar playing, we would see our teachers at certain levels. Did we mention that last time? I'm not sure. We might have talked about that off recording, but basically, like, we both had the same guitar instructor or guitar teacher, and we would say, okay, so he's Goku, and the other one.
Oh,
remember that?
Yeah. Basically, what Mike DB Talks is referring to is that that we had like these two DMAs at our music school, and one was just really insanely talented, and he was like everyone kind of looked up to him as like the best in our guitar department. And then there was another guy who was like just right behind him, and they were both like almost evenly matched. But every time that this one DMA would play something like that was just incredible, the other one would go up and play at our departmental and just play something even better. And so we just kind of like related them to Goku and Vegeta.
Yeah.
and yeah, I remember that.
And for me, even too, like as far as my guitar playing, like I saw him, our teacher, I saw him as like the pinnacle. Like this is before Battle of Gods, so I was just like, okay, so he's a Super Saiyan 4, and at my level, I think I'm well, not on classical guitar, but on electric guitar.
Yeah.
I was like, I think I'm borderline SS3. I'm like, I might still be SS2, but I think I might be SS3. So I would rank myself in those terms, and every time I got better, like even past college, it's like, okay, I've gotten better. So now I'm SS3 for sure. And then, but of course, then Battle of Gods came out. Yeah. And it's just, okay, well now there's God levels, so this is hard to rank. Yeah. But I know I'm SS3, and I'd probably rate myself SS4 now.
Yeah.
As far as the Gods levels, well, there's a big power gap. So.
Oh, that's funny. No, man, I would do that too. Now, I mean, in that respect, I've kind of like gotten away from that just because there's not so many people that I'm constantly like competing with as a guitar player. But also it's just like with all the talent on YouTube, I've just realized that okay, I'm good at this one specific thing, and not too many people do that the way I do. So it's like there's no point in ranking anymore. But yeah. I remember when we were at school, I would definitely rank that, and I would kind of like equate it to the same. I would use like A class, B class, C class, S class, like Yu Yu Hakusho. Yeah, just because that seemed a little bit more apt. But I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Even like, did you ever watch One Punch Man?
Yeah, they
use the same system. I think some other anime use it too. Oh, actually, Zoids. Have you seen Zoids?
Oh, dude, I used to build Zoids, dude.
Well, the one that had the Liger, his base was Liger, and then he would be
yeah, he could change.
Like Liger, and then no, not Liger. Yeah, sorry, his name was Liger, but when he would put the blue armor on, and that would be called
like Liger D or something.
Jaeger. And then the orange one, or no, sorry, the red, yeah, it was orange. That was Snyder, and then the green one was Panzer, where he had all the missiles.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't remember this as a kid, but I actually rewatched it a couple years ago. And then when they get to this tournament, and they actually did use the same ranking system, like S class and below. So I was like, oh, so is this like a normal trope?
Man, I had a ton of toys growing up. Like I remember I built a lot of toys. I think I had like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's just like a funny aside. Okay, so like you're in socially. At least in your head, you're kind of like, or with me, we're kind of like, rating these guitar students like on this, like power scaling. Scaling these guitar students. So, well, I mean, in college, how else did it affect you? Were you able to meet other friends? Because of like your anime nerddom. Like I know they had a lot of like clubs and stuff where we went.
I actually didn't get into the clubs, and now I think about it, like, maybe I should have gotten into some of those clubs. No, I think it was really just you, and then Alan, and then I can't remember if anyone else talk about it with us. I don't remember.
It's hard to be a music student and do anything else, when you think about it.
But I will say, though, as far as socially, not necessarily, well, this could be how I interact, but basically, like, just Vegeta and his pride. That was the one thing that really stuck with me, is like, because he was a proud Saiyan warrior, Saiyan prince, and if he would be defeated in battle or Goku was to pass him, like he would want to get better. And so I always had that like same mentality, like I want to get better, and it could be guitar playing. Or when I started working out in college, I could apply it there too. Like, I need to get better. Like, I'm not going to give up. And so, even my wife, she's told me before that, I'm prideful, and I get it from Vegeta.
Yeah.
I'm not as douchey as him, obviously,
Yeah.
but just the fact that I want to get better, and I'll tell this story too. This actually happened in high school. One of my friends, I was a senior and he was a freshman,
Mm-hmm.
and he'd only been playing guitar for like I think a couple of years, and at that time I had been playing for like I think eight maybe. Anyway, I could be wrong. So me and him were jamming one day, and like he actually like improved. Like he was learning really fast, and he was actually doing some stuff that I couldn't do. Like it's not that he was faster. Like I think I was still faster, but his alternate pick. And if
It was just like cleaner.
yeah, if you guys don't know all these music terminology, I apologize. I'll try to keep it brief. But basically, like he was able to like do 3 notes per string with ease, and it wasn't incredibly fast, but it was at a speed that was just like I couldn't do. Whereas I would do like the John Petrucci, like I would double up and play faster and transfer. So that kind of like bothered me. And I remember like seeing him do that. And it was right in front of like my ex-girlfriend. Well, she was my girlfriend at the time. I felt so like humiliated, like Vegeta.
Yeah.
And I took him home, and she was like, "Are you okay?" I was just like, "Do you think he's better than me?"
Yeah.
But I felt like Vegeta just like defeated. But then I worked harder, and then now I can do. I mean, I've gotten way better since then. I can do the shit he did back then, even faster than he did now. So it's just like one of those things. But that was that was definitely my, what they say, pride comes before the fall.
Yeah.
I mean, that was definitely my fall.
Yeah.
My first fall as far as guitar. But I bounced back from it.
So basically, kind of, Vegeta's character kind of embodied like determination and all these things. So you kind of took that determination from him to where you were always, wanting to be top dog or
wanting to always be right.
Or just be better. And so, I was going to ask you what character you relate to the most, but it sounds like it's Vegeta.
It might just be Vegeta.
Yeah.
I think personality-wise, like, I think I'm more free-spirited, like, and gentle like Goku. But as far as the pride, I mean, that's all Vegeta.
Yeah.
That came from Vegeta.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny, too. This is a little side note, but, I remember going to church, like, I was involved in a youth group, and, like, sin was a pride. Or, I mean, pride was a sin. Pride was a sin, sorry.
Yeah.
Pride was a sin. I was just like, but pride, like, I have pride. Like, Vegeta has pride. It can't be a sin.
Yeah.
So that's just something goofy. So, But anyway, that was just a side note.
Yeah. Well, I think that pride is definitely a good thing. Like, being of a mixed background racially, it's always been hard for me to like identify with, a certain culture.
Yeah.
But every time I hear like Mexican music, I feel it. And it's just like, when I hear that music, I'm proud to be Hispanic, and when I eat our food, I'm proud to be Hispanic, and
I think
stuff like
I
that.
think like watching the movie Coco.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like that, I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
Because I like, even though I don't speak Spanish, like the way they talk, I get it, because that's how my grandma talked, like mijo, like all that stuff. It's like I get it.
Well, yeah, it's like just like the social dynamics.
Yeah,
right
yeah,
there.
that's cool.
And that's reflected in Vegeta, because like he's kind of like, when you think about it, he's the one person in Dragon Ball keeping the Saiyan culture alive. Even though we don't really know much about the Saiyan culture, because I don't think Toriyama's gonna spend, the rest of his life, going into like that level of it. Like, it's cool to see that he's kind of like, he does that. He has
does.
pride. He's proud of who he is, and I think that's like an admirable quality. As long as you don't take it too far.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So, who is your least favorite character in all of Dragon Ball?
Oh man. Well, that's hard to say. I think the generic answer would be Krillin, but
Yeah. You know what? I
or maybe
always,
Yamcha.
I always like I always like the humans, because like personally I relate to them more, because like these Saiyans are just unattainable, like powerhouses. But like when I think about the humans, I'm like, I relate to them more. It's kind of like what we were saying in my guitar playing. Like, I'm good at classical style, and not everyone's good at that. So it's like, I have this one thing that sets me apart. Kind of like, Tien has, all of his techniques. I was gonna say solar flare, but fucking everyone stole that from him.
Yeah.
But like, he has his own, qualities, and so does Krillin and Yamcha and stuff. So.
Well, actually, you know what? I just thought. I think my least favorite character is Raditz.
Raditz?
And the reason he's my least favorite, it's kind of a silly reason, but it's the fact that he showed up and he was, whooping on Goku and Piccolo.
Mm-hmm.
But now Goku's so much stronger. Like, it just bothers me that this weak guy, like, he beat Goku, but now Goku, like, surpassed, like, even right after, like, he goes back to Earth and Vegeta's like, how is this possible? He couldn't even beat Raditz, but now he's handling Nappa. Like, part of me wants them to bring Toriyama, if you hear this, but part of me wants them to bring Raditz back, have him be all cocky, punch Goku in the face, and Goku in base form's like, that kind of tickled, and then just power up to max just to really humble him, because it just bothers me that he was so weak. I mean, Goku was weak too, but it just bothers me that he couldn't beat him. And then Goku surpasses him after he's dead. It's like, I wish Raditz could see that Goku's way stronger than him now.
Yeah.
It might be a dumb reason for hating a character, but I don't know. What do you think?
Well, no, I definitely see from like a power scaling perspective, like how you could hate Raditz. I think that he is a good conduit for the rest of the story, because he just introduces like this whole new universe. Because, at that time, Dragon Ball Z was still Dragon Ball, really. Yeah. So it's like all of their perspectives were like on the planet Earth, and then this guy from space comes and he's like the weakest guy in space, but he can kick all of their asses. So in that respect, I think he's a good storytelling tool. You know, but definitely I could see like how he could be kind of annoying, just like on a power scaling level, on a playability level as far as video games go.
Oh yeah,
it's like you play the
Double Sunday.
Yeah. Well, I've always hated how you could play like in Fighters or Budokai or whatever. You could be Guldo and like you can win. You could be like Super Saiyan 4 Goku if you just have the chops.
Exactly.
But I mean, it's just a video game, I guess.
I don't think was Goldo, was he in Budokai? I think they only had Raccoon and Ginyu. I think.
I don't think so.
I think he came later, maybe Tenkaichi.
Tenkaichi. He was probably in Tenkaichi. Yeah. And that's what I hated about Tenkaichi is like Budokai 3 was like the perfect Dragon Ball video game.
Yes.
But then they did Tenkaichi and they like made Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2 all these different characters. And so they're like, we've got a million characters, but it's really the same person.
Yeah, and they also changed the controls too.
Yeah.
I was just like, wait, what? Yeah. I was so mad about that.
Budokai 3 was the best.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, let's see. So, how do you think Dragon Ball will affect your life going forward?
I mean, especially where it's at now. Like the movie, hopefully future movies, or I think Super coming back. It's definitely I'll just say this: if there is like a new series, I'll always watch it. I'll watch it every week. That's what I've been doing. If Kamei-Khan stays in Texas, which I hope it does. I know that sounds selfish, but we don't live far from it.
We're right by Funimation, so you know what, guys? Just buy a plane ticket, okay? Like, Texas doesn't have much. You guys got, like, all the winning sports teams and all that shit. So just give us this one thing. Yeah.
Although I'm not sure people want to be next to Funimation with this whole scandal going on. But anyway, that's another story. But yeah, I'll definitely go to Kamei-Con. Any movie that comes out, I'll go see it. And I'll even try to get my daughter into it. I'll try to. Hopefully she'll like it. Who knows what can happen.
Yeah.
But it's... And I still have that mentality of, like, wanting to get better, whether it's at guitar or just when I go to the gym. I'm trying to go to the gym, like, every other day, like, just to get stronger. I always have that in the back of my mind, like Zenkai boost and like getting sore and then coming back stronger, and so and then also talking with people like you and my cousin, watching Dragon Ball YouTubers. Actually, I wanted to bring this up. So, how I discovered like geekdom and all these guys was, it was just that time, like I felt like, you know, I had no one to talk to Dragon Ball about other than my cousin, but he lives a couple hours away.
Mm.
And then I think it was my junior. I mean, we would talk about it, but there was a point in time where he got super busy and we didn't hang out as much.
Yeah.
And so, it's gonna sound really cocky, but I felt like I knew the most about Dragon Ball.
Mm.
Because whenever I go home for the summer, and I had friends who had seen the show, but they weren't as invested into it as I was.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would always say things wrong, like, oh yeah, so-and-so got this transformation because of this. And I'd be like, actually, it's because of this. Like, you're... And I thought I was like this shit. I was like, oh yeah, I know the most about Dragon Ball. So I would try to find like Dragon Ball Z quizzes.
Mm-hmm.
But then the first guy I discovered was, I'm probably gonna say, I think Unreal ENT Gaming, Unreal Ent Gaming.
Yeah.
And he was the first guy, Dragon Ball YouTuber. And when I saw him, I was like, oh, this guy, he might know more than me actually. And then Geekdom came out, and you know, he knew more than everybody because he was like, hey, let me dispel all these myths.
Mm-hmm.
And so definitely watching Geekdom humbled me,
Mm-hmm.
because this whole time I was just thinking, you know, English dub, that was it.
Yeah.
That's concrete. But then, you know, then I got to the point, oh, you know what? He's right. The original is Japanese. I should go buy the subtitles. And basically what I'm getting at is, now that we have guys like Geekdom around, always posting videos, and other guys like Quaman, just people like that, I'll always be invested, you know, like just on the way to work, you know, I could just pop up on YouTube, like a Geekdom video and just listen to it on the way there. And it's always going to be there in my life, like until, I mean, even when the series stops, like I feel like I might go for a long period of time without it, but then I'll go back and watch it again. So
yeah,
I think it's going to be, you know, in my life for a very long time, probably until I kick the bucket.
Yeah. Well, especially with your channel getting so many subscriptions, you know.
Oh, I know. I'm so close to 100. So close. It's been like that for a while. Yeah. Help me out, guys.
All right, so this has been another episode of Dragon Ball Impacts, and I made DB Talks do this one. He's not a narcissist. He didn't come to me and was like, hey, interview me for my Dragon Ball Impact series. No, I was like, dude, we need to keep this going, and I think it would be cool if you had one of yourself, because, you know, I think people would like to hear your story. So this has been Dragon Ball Impacts. DomCherokee signing off.
Thank you, Dom. Just thank you, DomCherokee. I was gonna say, I was surprised because we had talked earlier this week, and you know, we had 2 other ideas for video, but then when I got here and you mentioned that, I was just like, oh, and I was kind of like startled. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for this, but it actually went really well. And yeah, thanks for the talk. This was really fun.
Awesome. See you guys later.
All right, thank you all.